Russian cultural values around relationships are overwhelmingly long-term oriented. The concept of a relationship as a project, something you build, maintain, invest in, is deeply embedded. Casual relationships exist, of course, but the cultural default is commitment-minded. Women raised in this framework often enter relationships with a sense of purpose rather than experimentation. They're thinking about partnership, about building, about whether this person is someone they could genuinely rely on for decades. This creates a particular kind of loyalty that men who value depth over novelty find profoundly attractive. In psychology, this is linked to what researchers call future orientation in romantic partnerships, where both parties are invested not just in the present moment, but in a shared trajectory. That orientation changes the entire dynamic of a relationship. It makes the present feel more meaningful. Every interaction carries more weight, and it demands a level of intentionality from the man that, interestingly, often brings out his best qualities in return. Everything we've discussed so far, resilience, education, direct communication, selective warmth, loyalty, they all converge into a single overarching quality that is perhaps the most psychologically powerful of all: self-possession. Russian women, as a cultural pattern, tend to have a very settled, unperformed sense of who they are. They're not looking to be defined by a relationship. They're not seeking a man to complete them. They know what they value, how they want to live, what they'll accept and what they won't, and they will not compromise that core identity to be more accommodating. This might sound like it would make a relationship harder, but paradoxically, and this is backed by relationship psychology, partners who have a clear, stable internal identity create more secure, more fulfilling, and more enduring relationships, because there is no resentment, no loss of self, no slow erosion of personality over years of concession. What a man gets when he's with a woman like this is not a mirror of himself. It's a genuine other person, complete, whole, and deeply present. And that kind of presence, that realness, is something that can't be manufactured. It either exists or it doesn't. Attraction is never one-dimensional. It's never just about appearance or culture or geography. The deepest forms of attraction are responses, psychological, emotional, almost instinctive, to the qualities of a person. Resilience, intellectual engagement, honest communication, earned warmth, long-term loyalty, and an identity that stands on its own. These are the traits, rooted in history, culture, and lived experience, that explain why certain connections are so powerful, and why some people go to extraordinary lengths to find them. If this video gave you a new lens to see things through, consider sharing it with someone who'd find it interesting. Drop a comment below. What trait resonated with you most? And if you want more intelligent explorations of psychology, culture, and human behavior, subscribe. The next video might answer a question you haven't thought to ask yet. There's a reason certain men travel thousands of miles, learn an entirely new language, or completely rearrange their lives, all to be with one woman. Not because of a fantasy, not because of a film, but because of something far more grounded. A set of deeply ingrained personality traits that are almost uniquely concentrated in women raised in Russian culture. And once you understand what those traits actually are, and why they work the way they do psychologically, you'll never think about attraction the same way again. This isn't a video about stereotypes. It's not about looks, and it's not a comparison that puts anyone down. This is a deep psychological and cultural exploration, backed by real patterns in behavior, upbringing, and values, of why Russian women carry a particular set of personality traits, and why those traits create a very specific kind of magnetic pull on the right person. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer picture of what those traits really are, where they come from, and what they say about the psychology of attraction itself. Stay with us, because the trait we cover near the end might be the most surprising one of all. Let's begin with the trait that defines the foundation of everything else: resilience. Not the kind of resilience you build in a therapy session or a self-help course. The kind that forms when you grow up in a society that has experienced war, economic collapse, political upheaval and shortages, often within living memory. Russian women, particularly those born before the 2000s, grew up in environments where hardship wasn't something you talked about. You adapted. You moved forward. You found a way. This shapes a particular kind of emotional strength that doesn't perform toughness. It simply lives it. There's very little catastrophizing, very little panic over inconvenience. When things go wrong, the instinct is to solve, not to spiral. And here's why that's psychologically magnetic. According to attachment research, one of the most attractive qualities a partner can have is what's called secure emotional regulation, the ability to remain grounded under pressure. Many men, consciously or not, are drawn to a partner who anchors rather than amplifies chaos. Russian women, shaped by cultural necessity, often embody exactly that. But resilience is only one layer, and the next layer is one that surprises people the most. Russia has one of the highest literacy rates and university enrollment rates in the world. For decades, education wasn't just encouraged, it was a cultural expectation. Women were expected to be as educated as men, often more so. The result? A generation of women who grew up with intellectual curiosity as a baseline, not a bonus. They read, they debate, they form opinions and defend them. They aren't easily impressed by surface-level conversation, and that's exactly why some men find them incredibly stimulating to talk to. There's a psychological phenomenon called intellectual mirroring, where two people stimulate each other's thinking, building a sense of mutual respect and depth. Many men who have been in relationships with Russian women describe conversations that feel genuinely challenging, not in a combative way, but in a way that makes them think harder, see broader, and feel more engaged. Combine that intellectual confidence with the emotional resilience we just talked about, and you already have something rare. But here's where it gets truly interesting. There's a cultural pattern in Russian communication that confuses outsiders at first, and then becomes one of the most appreciated qualities over time. Russian women tend to be direct. They don't over-soften, over-apologize, or dance around a point. If something is wrong, they'll say so. If they have an opinion, they'll share it. If they're unhappy, they won't perform happiness for social comfort. Now, this directness is often misread in cross-cultural contexts. It can feel blunt to people from cultures where soft framing is the norm. But here's the psychological reality. Directness is actually a form of respect. It says, I trust you enough to tell you the truth. And men who've had experiences with partners who use passive aggression, hinting, or emotional ambiguity often describe the transition to direct communication as genuinely a relief. They always know where they stand. They don't have to decode silence. They don't have to wonder. What they get in return for navigating that directness, though, is something even more compelling. Here's a myth that needs to be dismantled completely. There's a widespread perception, especially in Western media, that Russian women are cold, reserved, emotionally unavailable. The stereotypical image: a woman who rarely smiles at strangers, speaks in short sentences, and keeps her feelings locked somewhere inaccessible. And here's the thing. That image isn't entirely wrong, but it's catastrophically misread. What people interpret as coldness is actually selectivity. Russian culture does not encourage the public performance of warmth. Smiling at strangers is not a social norm. Emotional expression is private, not public. It is reserved, and here's the key word, reserved for people who have earned it. The psychological effect of this is powerful. When a Russian woman does open up, when she decides you're worth warmth, that warmth is specific, it is deliberate, it means something. It wasn't handed out freely to everyone who passed. And for many men, experiencing warmth that is earned rather than performed creates a far deeper emotional imprint. The commitment that follows from this selectivity is the next piece of the puzzle.